Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're doing a reflection on servant leadership. I think I can think of places like when I go to one-on-ones. I always start off with, "How are you doing? How are things with your personal life? Great." And then I get to work. And when we go back and reflect on these leadership styles, it creates exceptional high levels of trust, loyalty, engagement, improves employee well-being, retention. Well, it does all that because you are putting the employee first before you putting their performance, right? But it's always seemed like a very much let's not just look at performance. I think it's almost like I think of this as this is like the opposite of transactional leader. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about, Kiana. Is like transactional leader is like, here's what you need to do, here's the outcome, let's get it done, let's move forward. Where servant leader is like, yeah, the outcome is there. We want to get to that, and the behavior should be there for you to get to that. But how are you doing? What do you need? Like, what are the tools you need? I've put a lot of my time and effort in my career looking at SOPs, processes, trainings. Um, I think I put those very high up in my priority list. Where, in fact, two times in two different companies that I went to, one of the first things that I did is I looked at the processes, their SOP, and I went to the team and said, "Hey, how's this looking? Can you guys use this?" "No, we barely use it. It's outdated." "Okay, well, let's fix it. Let's fix this thing that you guys use as your source of truth to help you, progress." So I think for me, it's like service leadership is all about how do you help this employee be ready to go, and how can I serve them? And it's not how I serve them as I'm a servant to them. In a way I am, but I, as the leader, or the servant leader themselves, is always the person that has the last say. But I think of myself, what tools and resources can I put around this person for them to be the best person possible? And it's not just tools for the job, perhaps it's also tools for well-being. Like if this person is super stressed, maybe I'll tell them like, "Hey, you should talk to HR a little bit, or you should talk to, connect with this person here to help you a little bit to relax." Or let me pair up this person that's very nervous with this other person over here that's very fluid, and have them talk a little bit and share each other's experiences so they can benefit. So perhaps that's where it is, right? For me, servant leadership is, what tools and resources can I put around my team members so that they will never say I wasn't prepared, or they will never say I didn't have enough knowledge or support to do XYZ. And I think if that gives you a good amount of confidence that once you do hold them accountable, of course you can validate that they have the support, but you can double check and say, did you have the support? Did you have all the avenues you can ask for help? And if the answer is like, yeah, it was all there, I just didn't because, maybe they won't say it, but like roundabout way, they're like, I was lazy, I kind of let go, or I had the personal stuff that got in the way. And then you can do what you need to. But I think as a servant leader, if you can truly tell yourself, I did everything I needed to do to help my team members have all the resources there, and I was honest, and I had an open door policy where they can come to me without any even sense of reprimand, or if they were to tell me something that I didn't like, "Hey, you know what? The SOP guide is horrible. I don't know what to do when this happens." Like, hopefully your employees have that level of uh, uh, the ability to come to you and tell you, this thing is broken. I really need help to fix it, or we should really fix it. And then your priority is there. And just one more thing, Kiana, is like, thinking back, one of the big things I did with my leadership team in my previous company was I did leadership training, in fact, because this whole channel is around the idea there is not enough leadership training out there. And with my leadership team, I would take either books or topics or structures. I would say, "Hey, everybody, we're going to cover this book here on that high level, and one meeting per week for the first 30 minutes, we're going to cover each one of these philosophies or disciplines of leadership." And I got really good feedback on that. And I think that's a prime example of being a servant leader. I'm identifying there's a lack in performance or in expertise in this topic. What am I going to do? I'm going to spend more time in helping these people learn this topic, become better at it, so that they're not necessarily only just better for the company, but they're also better leaders all around for even their future.
I think the difficult part with giving personal examples of servant leadership is because this style is really more of a personality and lifestyle to each one of us because it's so dominant. We're not thinking about using it. It's kind of who we are. And the reason I say that is because um, 80, 90% of the time, our mentality is when we're able to help somebody else succeed, or when somebody else is happy, we
Right.
feel satisfied and happy ourselves. So it's really more a mentality. It's kind of the personality, like both professional and personal setting. For me, I tend to exude this servant leadership style.
Natural.
Yeah, it's natural. So it's like hard for me to be like, let me think of example because I mean that's kind of my daily life, both in work as well as at home.
Right.
I really enjoy making people happy. I really enjoy helping somebody gain their confidence. I really enjoy helping somebody succeed. You know, it's like the mentality of like, are you happy or receiving a gift, or are you happy or giving a gift?
Mhm.
Almost one of those mentalities, right? So it's one of those. And I think it's a very strong style to utilize. But like anything else, when the situation calls it, you pivot. So
Yeah, exactly.
mhm. I feel like for me, so this style is very dominant in my leadership style. It's probably a style I never really think about that I'm going to utilize versus I just naturally kind of pursue it in my leadership journey. I am a firm believer that if you focus on the people, results, financial revenue, everything else will come and follows. If you have happy employees, they're going to be happy to perform for you. That's just as
Mhm.
simple as that. The people should be the center of your decisions and the company goal and culture, right? I think the way I have utilized and experienced this style is I definitely set boundaries when it comes down to this style. So when I work with my team, individuals, departments, anything like that, I want to be able to set boundaries of, yeah, I'm going to be empathetic. I'm going to take your feedback. Everybody have a voice, but I am not going to be a leader that will be a yes man or yes woman as well, because this style often does have it creates a comfort and safety for employees that often they feel like they can relax with you because you're bonding and creating a friendship. And sometimes they forget, you know, that maybe not intentionally, but they could potentially step on your toes and think that, oh, whatever I do, I won't get in trouble because Kiana is my friend, you know, or she's going to have my back. And the answer truly comes down to yes and no. When it's business, right? And whether we're friends or not, and we have a good relationship, consequences and justice and fairness is applied to all. Doesn't matter at the end of the day. So having the boundary to utilize this style is very important. But it is a style I kind of breathe and live when it comes down to my leadership preference. I also had this style be utilized on me as well, and I feel like with other styles, I'm able to like know like, oh, they're very like autocratic, or I'm noticing the transformational piece coming out. But I feel like with the servant leadership, when it's being utilized on me for my manager or my boss and whatnot, I'm not noticing it as well because I think for the most part, when people are running a company or department or managing employees, you're naturally going in and being cautious and sensitive and just kind to the people you're working with, right? They're the soldiers on the ground. They're the ones that is going to be there, right? So I'm not noticing that somebody's dominant in servant leader. It's just very natural. It's a very natural style that I think a lot of people gravitate towards when it comes down to this. So that's been
Yeah,
from my experience.
right. And Kiana, have you had it where you've had to check someone from overstepping their bounds because you get close to people and get to talk with them as a person beyond just the numbers and the day to day, and people kind of open up and everything like that, and then maybe somebody will do something that they slip up on, and they're like, oh, just don't worry about it. Have you ever had to kind of,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
how do you deal with that? Because I know that's a big question, I would imagine, from a lot of people, to say some of my employees get pretty close to me, and that's great because we have a good bond and it's professional, everything's great, but then they kind of want leniency.
yeah, yeah. I have. This is the I think con of this style is that it's the chicken and the egg almost. Like you're creating such a trusting and comfortable environment that they feel safe with you. But at the same time, you don't want them to forget it's still a professional work setting as well, right? I'll give you an example. I had it with an employee of mine. We were pretty good friends. But then she ended up just, jokingly, but the joke she made was pretty inappropriate, right? It
Mm.
was a little bit tied to, your ethnicity and whatnot when it came down to making comment. But in her mind, she's like, well, we're good friends. She knows me. It's just a joke. She's not going to, really like get upset, do anything about it, right? But that's not the case. Like for me, I do know her, and I was like, I know she's joking, but I had to set an example. I had to set an example of that we're still in a professional setting as a workplace, and these type of, jokes or these type of comments isn't appropriate. So I did. I had pulled her aside. I had a one-on-one with her, and I talked to her and said, "This is not okay. We don't make comments like this, which that could discriminate, what can cause friction or division, people." Now, of course, her response is like, "Well, I didn't think you would take offense for it because I thought, we were good friends." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, there's a couple pieces here. We could be still good friends, but I am still your boss first when it comes down to the company and professional setting. Two, I have to be able to set an example. If you think this is okay with me, then you may do it with someone else, and that's not going to be okay." Right. So in a professional leadership setting, when it comes down to building relationship with your employees or your peers, it's great. But you have to set boundaries. You have to be able to still treat everybody fairly. So imagine if somebody wasn't as close to you made this comment, will you get upset? Probably. So why is it fair for somebody that's just close to you to make comment to be treated differently, right? So of course, warning was made, things were documented, and I did let HR know and whatnot. So I still took the proper steps, whether you're friends or not. I treat her the same as any employee. And that's just how you have to do it when it comes down to the professionalism of being a leader, right?
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, you're setting the example, right? So, Spills, let me ask you, with your past experience and of you being a servant leadership kind of, dominant trait of a style as well, have you noticed that this style worked better in any? I guess have you noticed that this style working better in specific employee traits versus others at all? Like, have you noticed that this style, say you manage a team of 10 or manage a team of 20, have you noticed that, being able to utilize style, was it across the board that like this was effective? Or did you notice that it was more effective with specific employee traits?
I think it was across the board very effective. I think some employees that I remember kind of kept to their own and they were just there. This is a little more in my retail days
Mhm.
where it was a little bit more of a job where we had a lot more turnover. So people weren't as committed to like the long-term vision of a career as much as they were to like work for the time frame. Some of those people, I think they just had less, they didn't care as much. I think they all appreciated the fact that like I was a lot more attentive and a lot more caring and a lot more like small talk with them. I think they appreciated it, but I think the people that are a little more private were probably less beneficial for them because they were like, "That's cool, yeah, that's cool. Small talk with you. I'm not too worried about it. I just want to go do my job and then clock out and go." And you kind of have to respect that too. Some people, as long as they do their job and they're there, I think that's fine. You don't have to like be best friends, obviously. Um, so I think it's like a safe style you can use primarily as a leader because it's mostly beneficial. It's just a degrees of beneficial. And there's the other people that are a lot more maybe emotional or a lot more talkative, I guess you should say, more extroverts that want to talk. And then you get them talking and they can start talking about their passions or whatever they have and they get really excited. And it's pretty cool to hear about it too. It's always fun to like hear about people's excitement, hobbies and stuff like that. And then you have just a really good exchange. And that's the important thing too is you have to be able to kind of switch back to work as soon as you need to switch back to work beyond just like, doing small talk and getting to know that person. So there's boundaries. Um, yeah, I think it's, I like this style a lot. I think it's most people that I've experienced, they've always seemed to have been very thankful for my style. I've had, I'm sure you have too, like people praising you. Hey, thank you very much. You've been great. I really appreciate the way you lead. And it's not talking ourselves up. It's just a fact that we're just using very good fundamental ways of leading that, I personally thought to myself, how would I want to be led? Right. I don't want to be just a number.
Mhm.
I don't want to be supervised and micromanaged all the time, mostly if I'm doing my stuff very well. So, you try to apply that to the employee and they appreciate it. So it's just kind of like a win-win.
Yeah.
Um,
In your perspective, do you think the servant leadership style, because you mentioned it's a pretty safe style. I agree for the most part, it's a pretty safe style to use day to day, and with majority of personalities or settings. But do you think this style could be utilized wrong or be misunderstood, let's just say?
oh, that's a good question. Mm, in my experience, I don't think that I've been in a role where it would have been that way. Even in sales, though it was retail sales, so I'll kind of preface that. It's always seemed to have been very beneficial to me because I can't think of any person that felt like, yeah, it's better for you not to really care for me beyond just like performance. It's like I'm just coming in, clocking in, doing my thing, clocking out. And as long as I perform, I'm good and I'm out. I think everybody kind of likes to feel like they're part of a team. Everybody likes to feel like they're important, you know? And so it's always been a beneficial thing for me to kind of take the time beyond just, hey, how are you doing performance? How are you doing in sales? Did you say the right things? Let's like let's shadow you. Let's do role plays, etc. uh, it's always been beneficial. So it's hard for me to think of a position in my experience
Yeah.
that this style does not work. Now, that being said, as we talked about, Kiana, this is not a style that you use all the time. There's time and place where you need to become autocratic and just be very direct to the point. We need to move quick. We have, limited time, etc. There's times where you need to be a little more democratic, where it's like, I'm not focused on you right now. I'm focused on the whole group as a group, and we all need to share our ideas and work together and figure out the solution. But when it comes down, I think, to one-on-ones and one-on-one coaching, training, and just reviewing their performance, that's where I think this style excels because it's a little more beyond just like performance. It's like, because that person might tell me, you know what, I'm having a hard time with family right now. I'm going through XYZ. And you can kind of like, oh, okay. I think that's where you can kind of it can be perceived as you're putting the person before the company because you say, oh, okay, I'm not saying it's right for you to not perform well, but if your performance dipped a little bit this week and you told me that there's something personal about you going on, I think I'll have a little more leniency. Now, if that becomes a trend, that's a different story. That's where we talk about accountability has to still be there. But if it's a one-off situation and you find out that you have something personal, you don't have to expand on the personal thing, but they kind of open up to tell you there's stuff going on. I think most servant leaders will take that and say, okay, we'll give this person the benefit of the doubt because they're not commonly this kind of a performer. And we'll give them that break there. Because, you could go the other style and say, I don't care what's going on in your personal life. You perform well, not well. I'm going to write you up. And that person's like, this is once in like months, right? Now you're holding me accountable. Now I feel like I'm an outsider, right? Like I feel like you're pushing me away, and all it was like something was going on in real life. So now, as an employee, I would question if this is the right place for me. They can't even understand me. They can't even give me a break. So I think that's where you can balance the idea of I'm still holding people accountable, but if I know them personally to some extent, and I know something's going on, I can give them a little bit of extra leeway to go over that hump and come back around and perform well.
Yeah. This style
How,
is like it's easy to utilize from day to day because nobody, tries to wake up and shows up and just be a joke to people. But it is
yeah,
also very exhausting. You're constantly dancing because you're balancing the company's priorities and health to the employee and the people you care about the most, right? You're a tool and resource for your people as well. I've had a little bit different experience where
yeah,
um that being a servant leader is my dominant, and realized that. So I will have my one-on-ones, and most of my employees will be really excited to kind of come in, check in, have quick conversation or not. But I have noticed there has been employees where they'll message me before one-on-ones and ask of like why are we needing to meet, right? And I told them just check in, and they'll frankly just tell me that I'm fine, I don't need to check in. I'll reach out to you if I need anything, right? So that tells me a little bit about, maybe it's not necessarily they don't prefer my servant leadership style, but it maybe to them is they just prefer of like, directness, get the job done and be done with. But at the same time, I also have to question like, is it my style with these employees that needs to change, or is the employees in the wrong culture fit? right? Like you have to
Hmm.
really think about things and balance when it comes down to managing each individual and what their preferences is. So
And do you take that meeting still if they said, "Hey, I'm fine, I don't need to meet," or do you say, "Yeah, no, we still got to meet because I'm
I
asking you to meet"?
don't. I am through and through servant leader, so I listen to the people, right? So I'm like, okay,
Okay.
that's fine. We can go ahead and skip. Go ahead and send me. If I had a KPIs and goals they had to submit, I will tell them to send it to me. Of this is what I'm looking at. This is what you need to provide, and they'll provide it, right? But typically, what I'll do is I'll also let them know that I'll move this meeting to the end of the week, or I'll move it to a different time. I'll do a check in then, right? So I do work with their preference and their style of what they like because in reality it's possible maybe I am interrupting them in the zone, right? Maybe I am, maybe I'm
Mm,
being too much of a servant leader, right? So
mm.
it's kind of self-evaluating when it comes down to being so people driven, where you don't want to come off as micromanaging or I don't know, too clingy of a leader.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if the person had like you said, they were really in the zone. They're like, "Hey, I could really prefer to meet later." I think I would be okay with that. My initial reaction when you said that was like, "Well, I scheduled a meeting. We're meeting," you know. So I think that's where like my autocratic style kind of kicks in a little bit. It's like, "Wait, we're still meeting." But to your point, I think I'd do the same. Like if the person was like, "Hey, I need the time" or something like that, I would absolutely like push it. I'll push the meeting out. You reminded me of something. I think for me, another part of me that is definitely that servant approach is, I think at least, is kind of like my open door policy for people to just anyone in the company within I mean, anyone, period, but like mostly within my organization or my team of people and hierarchy. I'd have open door policy where I could say like, "Hey, come in anytime. Do you want to hang out? Say hi, do whatever. Like, tell me about anything that's troubling you. You can do that." And I made a very big point of saying like, "You're not going above your supervisor. You're just want to talk to me for whatever reason, that's great." And I would always, of course, preface. And if I had those meetings, I would say, "Hey, that sounds like something you should definitely bring up to your manager. Make sure you go to them first. If you have problems, of course, you can come to me and I can kind of help mediate, but you should really go to your supervisor and trust them." Um, which kind of brings a tangential point. That's actually a good strategy to just make sure that your team is performing effectively well in how they're doing things. And so if you have like managers or supervisors you have a little bit of concern with, having that open door extra level of communication to you or somewhat higher level is very effective, because you don't want people to kind of like you know be at certain level and they can't step, what do they call it, they can't skip step, is that what it's called? Like that supervisor to go somewhere else. Because I know some companies that are very big at, you don't want to go over your boss's head, as they say. It's like a pretty
Yeah.
common phrase,
Good leveling.
and it's
Yeah.
not skip leveling. Thank you. And that's, you don't want to do that. But I think as a servant leader, at least the way I perceived it, as me being a servant leader, I thought to myself, I just want people to be able to talk to me if they want to talk to me. If anything, I just get to know more of the people that are like on the ground level, and they can tell me a little bit about the experience, so that when I'm making organizational level decisions about my domain, I can do it with a little more knowledge. And then when I'm reporting to my president or CEO or the founder of the company, it's not just my opinion of what I've seen in data. It's also talking to the ground level employees that are there on a day to day basis. So, not sure if that's necessarily servant leadership, but it definitely feels like it, because you are giving more of that open communication approach to different levels. And again, some of these meetings were like, some of these employees say, "Hi, I'm just here to say hi. I haven't talked to you in a long time. Haven't seen you in a while. Just want to say hi. How are you doing?" And then we just talk a little bit, and that's it. Um, and they say, "I appreciate it. Appreciate I could just talk to you and say hi." Or, "I appreciate I would just give you an opinion or an idea, or something is broken." So that worked out really well. Right. Well, that will wrap it up. Thank you all very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please give us a little bit of your thoughts on your experience in either being a servant leader or having a servant leader will lead you, and tell us a little bit about that. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.